advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that.
Tonight at 6, Alaska's congressional delegation is speaking on the president's mega bill, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, and our state senior senator describing it as one of the most difficult votes she has ever experienced. The latest and what's next just ahead.
And the family of a kayaker whose body was found over the weekend reflect on his life and legacy. And temperatures and fire danger both rising tonight. I'll let you know what the biggest concerns are heading into the holiday weekend.
And later, how a local group is helping Fairbanks area students grow a harvest and a potential profit in their gardens.
You're watching Alaska's news source.
The nays are 50 and the amendment is not agreed to.
This morning, the Senate voted on the 45th Amendment, that's what you just heard, to the president's mega bill. And with that vote, lawmakers broke the record for the most number of votes on a piece of legislation in history.
And now, 10 hours after the so-called Big Beautiful Bill passed the Senate, Alaska's delegation is explaining its yes votes.
Well, good evening. That gives you a little glimpse of where we're at right now. The House still has yet to sign on to this massive package.
At this hour, lawmakers are still working on it. Before we hear from Alaska's congressional delegation, we begin our coverage in the nation's capital with our Washington News Bureau's Stetson Miller.
In his role as president of the Senate, Vice President J.D. Vance cast the deciding vote here. 51 Republicans were in favor of the Big Beautiful Bill, while 47 Democrats and 3 Republicans voted no.
The yeas are 50. The nays are 50.
Republicans focused on the tax cuts, insisting that the average American will see lower tax payments. To pay for the reduction in tax revenues, key programs are facing significant cuts. Democrats focused on the cuts in payments to SNAP, which pays for food for low-income families, and cuts to Medicaid and Medicare funding. Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Tom Tillis of North Carolina stuck with their position that the cuts to Medicaid were an unacceptable cost, while Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky's red line was the expected increase in federal debt. The Big Beautiful Bill now has a slightly different name after Senate amendments and a completely different text. The next stop is the House, which must pass the legislation as is to send it to the president's desk, or the voting process starts over again. In Washington, I'm Stetson Miller.
And reactions are pouring in tonight, including from Alaska's lawmakers.
Our political reporter Will Courtney continues our team coverage tonight with the potential impact for key Alaska programs. Will.
Even with Senator Murkowski's yes vote today, there's a noticeable difference in tone between Senator Sullivan and even state leaders over what the Big Beautiful Bill will specifically mean for Alaskans who receive SNAP and Medicaid benefits. After speaking with reporters, Murkowski said in a statement, her goal was to turn a bad bill better for Alaska. While she said she hopes examples like securing $50 billion for a rural health fund helps with Medicaid concerns, and added things like tribal exemptions for work requirements helps with SNAP benefits. She says she's still worried. But citing the same type of examples, that's why Senator Sullivan says he thinks Alaska programs are in a good place.
We have provisions in this that, particularly in terms of Medicaid spending, rural hospital spending, that I think we're going to have a significant increase. Like I said, at a minimum, about $200 million a year for our state.
Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill.
Senator Lisa Murkowski has valiantly tried to correct the errors in this bill. Obviously, she wasn't 100% successful. I am grateful for the attempts that she made. I'm not sure why she voted yes. But at the same time, I trust her judgment.
That was the state Senate Majority Leader Anchorage Republican Kathy Giesel. She just wrote an opinion piece for the New York Times with House Speaker Bryce Edgman. Will, standing by with us still, what are their overall concerns about SNAP and Medicaid?
Sure. Well, I think one of their main funds is 40,000 Alaskans might lose health care. Families could go hungry, and the state will suddenly have to pay for services when our budget is already in a tough place. We asked Senator Sullivan about that. In his view, the opinion piece was not based in fact, and that's according to Senator Sullivan. And he does not share those same concerns. John, Augusta.
All right, Will, Courtney, thank you very much for reporting for us tonight. As mentioned, this revised package is now with the House, and it is well known that there will be hurdles in that chamber.
And that's where Republicans can only spare 3 votes. An earlier version of the bill did pass by a single vote.
And lawmakers are working to get a final answer on H.R. 1 before the 4th of July holiday.
And here at home, some areas are seeing a bit of relief from wildfires raging across the state. Let's take a bit of a pivot, John.
Yeah, but others growing wildfires as we speak. Chief Meteorologist Melissa Fry with a look at the latest warnings in effect. Melissa.
Yeah, we knew those temperatures were going to rise this weekend, already pushing into the 80s tonight. They're going to be even warmer, that is, across the interior as we head into the second half of the week. I want to show you red flag warnings issued for most of the interior as we head through this afternoon. All of those areas highlighted in pink, you really need to use extra caution, although I'd argue probably most of the state needs to use some extra caution heading into this weekend. We are going to see those winds increasing, those specifically in these areas you see highlighted in pink on Wednesday. Humidity levels are dropping, temperatures warming to the upper 80s. That's all contributing to that increasing fire danger. Temperatures already to the 80s today in Fairbanks. We did see 60s on the slope after record heat in the 70s there yesterday. Temperatures right now sitting at 68 degrees in Anchorage. Cooler, though, for the southwest and southeast corners of the state. That is where we are seeing rain, just scattered showers in southeast from a storm building across Canada. But in southwest, this area of low pressure still delivering some significant rain to the area tonight and tomorrow before it fizzles out heading into midweek. At the same time, high pressure building across the rest of the state, which will bring those drier and warmer conditions as we head into Thursday, Friday, even into the weekend as well. Again, that high pressure holding, which is going to keep dry conditions around. High temperatures back to nearly 70 in Anchorage tomorrow, mid-80s in Fairbanks. We'll see low 60s in both Juneau and Bethel with some of that morning rain. And I'll have a closer look at that full weekend forecast here in a few minutes.
Oh, it's going to be nice. Thank you, Melissa. Happening right now, a public meeting on the Nelchina Glacier Fire taking place at the Mendeltna Community Church.
The Division of Forestry is urging drivers to be especially careful along the Glen Highway between mile markers 126 and 138. That's where fire crews, engines, and aviation support vehicles will remain active throughout this weekend.
And still ahead on Alaska's News Source.
He walked into rooms and just brightened it up.
A family reflects on the loss of a young staff sergeant who died while kayaking on a kayaking trip on the Chena River.
And the state wants Alaskans who use 23andMe to review their privacy settings, what the Department of Law recommends now.
You're watching Alaska's News Source.
A Fairbanks family is mourning the loss of an airman who died while kayaking the Chena River last week.
His body was recovered over the weekend. And tonight, Adrian Peterson is at a memorial for Staff Sergeant Christian Diaz. Adrian?
Thank you, Augusta and John. That's right. Just minutes ago, both Pam Diaz and another sister of Christian Diaz, Pam Diaz being Christian's mother, were here at the site of where he went under the river while kayaking with some friends on Friday. Now, here there's also a memorial, and right behind me is the area where he went under the river. But not too far away, the memorial lies right at the foot of the river as well. Now, when they were here, they explained to us how Christian was not only a fantastic soldier as part of his family legacy, but he was a hero to his mother, and he helped out not only with keeping the family afloat, but financing 2 of his siblings going through college.
I believe my son was put on this earth to touch people's lives. For some reason, people that with dark issues always made it into his life, and he always managed to get them out of that hole.
His mom, a single mom of 7, says he followed in his sister's footsteps when joining the Air Force. Now, she was the first to go in, followed by an older brother who also served. I'll have more on this tonight during the late edition. Adrian Peterson, Alaska's News Source.
Thank you, Adrian. In an update to a story we have been tracking, 35 immigration detainees being held in Anchorage are now back in the custody of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. That's according to a statement released by the Alaska Department of Corrections this week. The group, which was being held at the Anchorage Correctional Complex, was part of 42 people arrested outside of Alaska, then brought to the ACC this month. Alaska houses certain federal detainees under an agreement with U.S. Marshals Service. You can read more about this on our website.
Alaska's Attorney General's office is encouraging 23andMe users to review their data privacy settings ahead of a transfer of all consumer data to a new nonprofit. The move follows a ruling by a federal bankruptcy judge approving the sale of 23andMe to TTAM, a medical research nonprofit. The District of Columbia and 26 states, including Alaska, settled with TTAM as part of that ruling to implement data privacy provisions for consumers. TTAM will now only be able to use DNA information that users have already authorized for research purposes through 23andMe. The transfer of information is expected to go through as early as the evening of July 7th. That's next Monday.
This kind of data is extremely sensitive, right? Your genetic data doesn't just reflect you, it reflects your parents, your children, your relatives. And unlike your credit card number or even your social security number, it can't be changed.
So if you've got a 23andMe account and you've submitted your DNA data, here's some of your options to protect your information. You can log in now to your 23andMe account and request to delete your data immediately. If you never authorized your data to be shared for research purposes, it will be deleted by TTAM in 12 months and never used for research. You can also find instructions for deletion on our website. Additionally, TTAM also agreed to accept deletion requests from Alaskans at any time.